Our Notes. Thank you. It's a collaborative document.
Our Notes. Did I say my notes? Oh, my sincerest apologies.
They don't know what I know.
I see.
Welcome back to another Zengineering podcast.
Oh, thank you.
I'm Adam.
Thank you. I'm Brian.
Brian, I wasn't welcoming you. I was welcoming the listeners.
Sometimes I like to think that you're
you
welcoming
have to
me.
be here.
I have to be here.
Yeah, you do, because I can't just, no one wants to listen to me talk.
That's not true, buddy. You do a great job by yourself, but I won't make you do that.
Oh, thanks. I would never, an episode that was just me by myself would never come out, because I would just I would keep listening to it and go, no, got to try that again.
Reasonable.
So hit list episode.
Hit lists. All right.
Hitting the hit list of random stuff. We were like, hey, that's interesting. And then mostly forgot what it was by the time we get to the list here now.
Oh, not today though. We've got two good ones that
well, this first one is one that I was like, stop talking about that. Do it on the podcast.
Yeah.
The first one is Wikipedia and its appearance in search results, which we've sort of covered why that happens on a podcast.
Wikipedia. That's true. We did cover that.
But more comical is your reaction to its appearance on top of.
Well, I remember a day not too long ago, a long period when everyone around me used to complain that Wikipedia was the top search result for everything. And now the world's kind of gotten used to it. And I think almost everyone has accepted that it's just a great resource full of all the information you want whenever you search for things that result in it being at the top of your results.
But I still am generally inclined to check out the thing that shows up under Wikipedia.
I just did it.
as the answer to my query. I do the same thing that you do. And I don't know why. Because the answer that I'm looking for is on Wikipedia.
It was.
Google's right. That's the place that has the answer.
It is right, and it does have the answer. We just went through this. We were looking up one of the hit list topics that we'll get to in a minute, and I foolishly clicked on the second result, and I got there, and there were paragraphs of some person just talking, and there was ads, and I was like, God, why didn't I just click on Wikipedia?
It was like someone else's opinion about the thing that you wanted to know about, which is nice. It's good that it's out there, but it doesn't serve your purpose of just getting some information, like encyclopedia raw information about the thing you wanted to know about.
And so I went back to the search results and I went to the Wikipedia results, wasting seconds of my life. And the first section of the Wikipedia article was over my head. So I scrolled a little further and there was a summary of the first section, which was perfect. And then we were set.
And you're finished. Which is funny because a lot of those voice activated, like Siri, Google Now, like they'll end up returning Wikipedia results. And so sometimes I don't use them. But as you explain this, I'm like, I should use Siri for more stuff because it's bringing up the Wikipedia page and that has the answer I'm looking for. And now it'll even read you the Wikipedia page. You can just say, read that to me. And it'll.
Oh, that's fun.
Isn't that great?
We looked at doing that as sort of like a potential podcast like type of episode is picking Wikipedia articles and reading them.
Well, because they have a whole program where people that have the time and the hardware, we have the hardware, but not the time, unfortunately.
Time. There's not enough. All the clocks, they keep on ticking.
You get all the clocks. You can record yourself reading. Like if you go to a very popular Wikipedia article, you'll probably see a little speaker in the upper right hand corner, and that will just play you a file that someone else submitted. The same way all of Wikipedia is edited, that someone was like, hey, I could do this, read that out so that like blind people or just people in their car can still consume a Wikipedia article.
Totally. They're not really made for just consuming like that, I find, though. I used to have an article or an app called Wikipanion, which would let me like queue up Wikipedia articles. And I found I rarely like read all the way through, partly because you're just bouncing around. There's so much good information in there. you get like 4 sentences into an article. And it's like, oh, I got to click on that thing. And then you read 10 sentences of that and you're like, whoa, this thing's even more interesting. And then you're lost in Wikipedia, which is a great place to get lost.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say about Wikipedia, two things I want to say about Wikipedia. Yes, anyone can edit it. However, there are incredible functions of the site that prevent you from making really dumb edits. There are layers and layers of automation that look for spam and remove it. And then there are thousands and maybe tens of thousands of editors around the world that have risen up through ranks and hold volunteer positions with Wikipedia where they control the quality. And second, if you look down at the bottom of any Wikipedia article these days, maybe not any, but almost any large article, you will see dozens, if not hundreds of citations to magazines and books and other encyclopedias. And I just, as a resource for information, there is absolutely nothing on earth that comes even close as far as I'm concerned, just for general research purposes.
Well, the other interesting thing is like, so
out.
you just talked through a bunch of tech stuff. That's really like, that keeps the product, or whatever you want to call it, the database,
the data. It's all about the data.
Effective as an encyclopedia. But also like a system that functions like that, as long as you have 3 people that want it to be good for every one bad that wants to try to wreck it and not take it seriously, you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
The second that those 3 go away, the whole thing would fall apart anyway. But as long as you have an offset of more people that are willing to go, nope, and fix the thing that the crazy guy tries to screw up, then the system, holds together. And so the fact that Wikipedia is as good as it is sort of a testament to human nature that should make you feel good about the world.
That's a great spin on it. I really like that.
It persists because there are more good people than bad people. And as long as that's the way of the world, generally we'll be okay.
I use Wikipedia, I would say almost every single day, if not many times every day. And I try to donate every year when they have their annual fundraiser.
I was going to say, that takes me to a note that's kind of like, you should think about giving them money because it takes money to run this thing.
Yep.
And they don't run ads, which is part of the reason.
They're one of the largest websites in the world. They would make, I am making this number up, but we both have some experience here. I would guess tens, if not hundreds, if not billions of dollars a year on advertising. Which sometimes I think is dumb that they don't, but at the same time, it's very noble that they maintain the system. And I think they operated for like $3 to $5 million a year. They have minimal staff. It's incredibly efficient as a technical resource. It's very well run in terms of efficiency and cost, but it takes money, and it's a non-profit or not-for-profit or whatever name.
Social good.
It's great.
Whatever they call it, yeah.
I'm getting little chills right now just talking about Wikipedia. It's amazing. It absolutely blows my mind. Nothing like this existed as a child.
It's super cool. This is one of those you should check out. There's a book called Here Comes Everybody by Clay Shirky, who's also got some awesome TED Talks.
Clay Aiken?
Shirky.
Clay Shirky.
Although if Clay Aiken sang the book, I would probably download that to listen to it also. But it's all about like Wikipedia and how it functions and why it works and cool stuff like that. So that's one I would say we'd put up a link to it, but that takes time. Just Google it.
Search for Wikipedia. It'll probably come up.
Right. Sweet. So the moral of that nugget, that hit, go respect Wikipedia,
or else we'll break your knuckles.
And give them your money.
Give them your money, you jerks.
Mic drop.
Oh, good.
So tell me about what you were going to Wiki, not deliberately, what you went to Google and then to Wikipedia.
I searched on www.google.com for the phrase Kardashev scale. And that's what took us down this pipe. And we were like, oh, we should talk about Wikipedia.
But it's interesting because they're tied together to me, because like what I was just saying about good people outnumbering bad in order to solve bigger problems and do things like the Wikipedia is how you progress along the Kardashev scale.
Ooh, such a strong segue.
Bam!
Boom. I almost don't want to talk about it because we just blew it up. Psych, I really
Well, no,
wanna
now
talk
we
about
have
it.
to explain it. Otherwise, that only makes sense to us right now, and any other listener who already understands the Kardashev scale. Which, if you want to learn about it in a way that's probably more compelling than us two doofuses trying to explain it to you, Neil Blomkamp,
Yeah,
the
that's a
guy
good
that
video.
made District 9, has an awesome TED
Director, right?
Talk video thing where he talks about the progression of culture into the
TEDx
universe and
Canada,
Kardashev
maybe?
scales and something like Vancouver. TEDx Vancouver.
Yeah. Look, you
But you can Google that, and I won't be.
don't go to
I won't be mad.
Wikipedia for that because they won't have the
No.
video. Damn,
No.
that negates our whole previous segment. He'll probably come up first.
I guess we should just wrap this one up then.
So what's the Kardashev scale?
We'll see you next week. So the Kardashev scale, I don't know where it comes from. You could read that from the Wikipedia article because you
I'll
have it
fill
open,
in.
right?
I'll fill
It's
in the
named
blanks.
for a guy, something Kardashev,
Nikolai Kardashev,
Nikolai
Soviet astronomer
Kardashev.
in 1964.
And it's a way of conceptualizing the degree to which a race or society, culture, like whatever subset of humans, civilization, right? That's a better word. How advanced they are. And it's really interesting because it carries forward. It's not necessarily based on the idea of like how much territory do they occupy, although I guess in a sense it is, but it's not really like break down the scale.
It's I think generally it's based on like energy consumption and forms of energy production and consumption. And so type 1,
and in that way, efficiency.
Yeah. And like power, ability to do stuff. And so a type 1, there are three scales. There's type 1, type 2, and type 3, and they're civilizations. A type 1 civilization. We currently on Earth are considered like a 0.8 or something. We're close. We're getting close to a type 1. A type 1 is considered a civilization that is effectively using all of the energy that they can harness on and from their planet. So like it doesn't necessarily go to these extremes, but imagine like covering the surface of the Earth in solar panels and consuming all of the radioactive material at nuclear plants and converting all the geothermal heat from the planet into steam and turning turbines, like producing as much energy as you can with the thing that we're stuck on at the moment.
Right. Which mostly like boils down to, this is back to our very first podcast ever. Still, the best way to do that is to figure out how to most effectively catch as much radiation as is hitting our planet from the sun. If we could utilize all of that, then our energy needs would be taken care of, and we could worry about other more advanced things. But one of the things that goes along with that is like, so on that scale, the like 0.7 to 8 to 9 to 1 transition is supposed to be the hardest out of all of it. Like one of the theories, and this is what Blomkamp talks about in his video about why we haven't found extraterrestrials, is just because no other civilization has managed to make the transition to type 1 yet, because it involves a degree of cooperation and sort of like you can't have a war on your planet at the same time that you solve the problems that need to be solved to roll over to a type 1 civilization.
Yeah, it's an interesting little philosophical bump that has to come along with type 1 conclusion, right? Is cooperation, global manufacturing and balancing of resources and needs, and at a level of producing that much energy. It's way more energy than we consume right now, even I think if the whole population of Earth was consuming as much energy as the United States does. And I believe the United States consumes like 2, 3, 10 times as much energy per capita as like the average in the world, if not like everywhere else.
And so then a Kardashev level 2 civilization is able to harness all of the energy produced by its star, I believe.
Yeah.
Of that solar system. And then I think 3 is harness the energy of your galaxy.
Yeah. That one seems silly.
So where are we? Where is Star Trek The Next Generation?
Oh, just
because that's all I care about.
I don't even think they're a type 1 yet. Although you probably could say they are. Wikipedia has terms like antimatter, the use of antimatter, large scale application of fusion power. You could probably,
That's type 1.
yeah. Star Trek probably,
Yeah,
you
so
could say they're
I
probably,
think Star Trek is like 1.1.
yeah. And it's not necessarily like, oh, every square inch of the planet is covered with solar cells. It's just sort of it's a conceptual construct to think
the
about
idea of producing
progressing.
like you could produce that much energy if you could also have a reaction the size of the sun that you harnessed.
Well, it's an interesting way to look at
even if you started it.
It's a neat way to look at where energy exists in the universe too, because even with all the power we produce on Earth, it's very small amounts of energy that we're producing compared to what potentially is there. When we master nuclear fusion, which is not the type of nuclear energy we produce right now, we do nuclear fission, which is splitting atoms to get energy or to produce heat. Nuclear fusion is how the sun works, and so that is a much more efficient conversion of matter, or that's not even, I guess you're converting the matter. It's a much more efficient production of energy. And so the sun is freaking huge and the whole thing is generating energy. So it is the biggest power plant in our local space. And so this brings up some, there's been some stuff in the news recently because nerds are always trying to look for, like, they want this stuff to be found. We want to find other civilizations.
We want to find a type 1 point.
Dyson,
whatever.
There's a thing called a Dyson sphere, which is the idea of like building a structure that wraps your star so that you actually capture energy coming off of the star. Because we don't really know how to convert. The sun is producing a lot of energy, and like a nuclear power plant produces a lot of energy, but we don't actually have a way to take like the nuclear reaction and do useful things with it. We use the nuclear reaction to generate steam and spin a turbine, which generates electricity, which lets us flow electrons, which then lets us run lights and computers and stuff. So we can't like use the sun directly for any good purpose. So you wrap it in this huge structure, and then you wrap it in solar panels, basically. I mean, in one
wrap
conceptual
the star
matter,
in solar panels.
the whole star. And then you like
and what's
live
interesting
on that thing.
is that would block the light from the star.
Yeah.
And so the way that we've talked about this before, like the way that we look at planets that are far away, and like when NASA announced they found a planet with this composition, they're all just looking with telescopes at the way that light reacts. And every once in a while these days, they catch a thing that's like, well, that has a predictable wobble in it.
That's weird.
That doesn't comport with stuff that we see in nature. And the first thing every nerd in the world does is go, it's a Dyson sphere. It's a Dyson swarm.
Or it's a Dyson. What's the video game Halo is like what it would look like under
the Halo
construction.
Idea is
rather than a whole sphere, it's like a ring that wraps a star.
You could do a lot with just a ring around your star, or even just your planet.
I mean, your planet is a form of that, right? It's a big chunk that floats out in space and orbits and absorbs all the energy
radiation from the star.
Yeah, it really is. It's an early.
Well, that's what I was going to say before. That was interesting. Is like the difference in energy generation that I don't feel like they talk about when they talk about clean energy versus the alternatives,
right,
is like, unless other than capturing the wind or capturing solar energy and repurposing that, every other way that we produce energy is by somehow unlocking energy already stored in whatever we're burning, whatever we're smashing together, whatever we're, hydroelectric, I guess, is not that either. So clean energy is like, it's clean, at least in the sense that they talk about, because you're just pulling, it's like I feel like I lost it. Like you're nabbing kinetic energy from something that's already moving, whether it's protons, photons, water, air. Like you're using it to grab some of the energy off of that thing, versus I'm going to burn you, break your chemical bonds, produce a bunch of byproducts, but also get some heat out of it that I can use to.
Well, I think where you maybe are heading with this that's interesting is clean energy is only clean at the levels we're currently using it. Like if there was only one coal power plant in the world, there wouldn't be a problem. No one would know that there's an issue. There wouldn't really be pollution. The atmosphere could handle it. Say we took let's take solar, for instance. If we started using solar energy at a level where we were blocking out significant parts of the planet to capture the sunlight, you're going to kill stuff on the planet.
We wouldn't have food to eat.
If we built a dam in every single river on Earth, we break the ecosystem. Water doesn't flow. If we put enough windmills up in the air that capture enough wind and start to mess up the actual flow of air around the planet
patterns,
we ruin stuff again. And so it's only a scale. It's not really that those things are better long term. We're going to run into these same problems again at some point and have to tackle the same issues. And that's when you'll have to move again. And you'll say, whoa, shit, we've messed up our weather patterns because we have these huge fans floating in the atmosphere. Shoot, no one saw this coming. Global warming or some equivalent big problem.
Right, whatever it's going to be, stagnant air.
It's
like the stale Earth problem.
Stale Earth. I miss the wind. Mother, tell me about when it used to be windy.
But so the question is, in terms of that progression and the scale, now never mind how fast we might move toward it, but how much bigger would the problem have to get? How much bigger would our consumption need to be than it is compared to us using fossil fuels? Like what it took to run out of fossil fuels versus what it would then take to run out of the clean sources. Like, would we get more time out of the clean stuff before we hit peak clean energy and have to start figuring out?
I don't personally think that solar and wind and geothermal will ever be mass produced, really, because I think we'll figure out nuclear fusion first, and the amount of energy. Think about a nuclear bomb. The big nuclear bombs work with nuclear fusion. There's so much energy in fusing matter together to generate energy that once we master nuclear fusion, again, how the sun works, we don't need those other forms of energy. We'll have essentially unlimited energy, at least in our current state, for the amount of energy we consume now for what we could produce with big fusion plants. I think I might sound like an idiot, someone who's a fusion engineer, but
look,
it'll just dwarf everything else.
I'm sorry, but I gotta bring up Star Trek again. Isn't that
Thanks for apologizing. I didn't know where you were going with that. It's like, what did you say?
Isn't that kind of like the included in how the replicator works is about once we figured out how to freely manipulate matter on the nuclear level, we could do whatever we wanted.
That makes sense to me. I mean, nuclear fusion is really, really hard. It involves manipulating matter at a very low level and controlling it and floating it in nuclear fusion reactors actually levitate matter that's hotter than the sun inside of this thing because it's too hot. It can't touch things. It can't be sitting in a cup. It would melt the cup. The replicator, we're getting to the point where we at some point we'll be able to manipulate the atomic structure effectively and engineer things at that level. We'll be able to. Nuclear fusion actually lets you turn lead to gold. No, it doesn't. It does not. We will not be able to turn lead to gold yet. But
that's about what we talked about in the first episode, right? That's only because
we're not there
yet.
You
could create it with fission, but not fusion. One's additive, one it takes stuff away, right? So because of where they are on the periodic table, you can't turn lead into gold because lead's if you were to progress down the table, you get to gold before you get to lead. You've already given up your chance at being gold by the time that you're lead. Is that correct?
I don't know where they both sit on the periodic table, but something like that, right? The way nuclear fusion and nuclear fission work, they change matter. They physically change atomic structures, and we will, as a civilization, gain that ability. I think. I just look at history, and there's nothing that's ever happened scientifically that didn't blow the minds of the people that came before it happened. And so I think everything we can imagine we'll eventually figure out. So we will eventually be manipulating things at the atomic structure, which then means, our building blocks, our raw materials won't be like boards and bricks and concrete. It will be electrons and protons and neutrons, which then can become anything we want. They can, poof, here's a hat. Poof, here's a cheeseburger. Poof, here's a gold bar. It's
tea,
a whole different
Earl
world.
Grey.
Tea, Earl Grey.
Hot.
Tea, Earl Grey. Do it with an accent.
I don't think I can do his accent.
I can't either.
Tea, Earl Grey.
Tea, Earl Grey. Hot. Computer.
Hot. Yes, you have to. It's the gravitas. Well, so here's a segue into something that's not on the list, but I thought of the other day
Oh,
and
yeah.
should have gone on the list. And we're gonna have to fight hard not to descend into a half-hour tirade. But I never realized that in terms of labeling GMOs,
Yeah.
which is like a popular thing to argue about right now,
Everybody hates them.
all that
GMOs.
So all that you need to label are things that are what I think they call transgenic developments.
Transgenic
So that's a case
GMOs.
of-
I don't like them.
So that's when they take the DNA of whatever the thing there is they're dealing with, and they deliberately inject a gene that they know will have a certain effect. You have to label that.
Right.
There's another process that's been developed and they've used for a long, long time that can get the same result and doesn't require you to label
Is
it.
it called
And that's
growing
just
plants?
fine.
Is it called breeding
Well,
plants?
It's called mutagenic, in which case you just blast a plant with radiation over and over until the mutation that you want is caused by that radiation, probably along with a whole bunch of other bullshit.
Oh, so you grow plants in the sun, and then the radiation causes mutations, and then the changes in the plants, and you pick the ones that you want and then grow those? So natural selection?
Right. It's another way of advancing natural selection, but it's by growing a plant in a
Interesting.
microwave instead.
Yeah,
And that's okay. You don't have to label that.
of course.
I feel like that would disturb the GMO folks just the same if they knew that was
what
okay.
doesn't disturb the GMO folks?
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
we're descending down that path.
No, exactly. That's the path we have to avoid. But what you were talking about is a really interesting thing, right? So maybe the mutagenic thing is not such a bad deal, because you're right. We're just replicating the sun's radiation hitting a thing and possibly causing a mutation.
It's all potentially dangerous.
And so the article where I saw this posted was really interesting and relevant to what we were talking about in our quantum computing episode, which is part of the struggle here is it's really hard to wrap your head around the idea that DNA is digital.
Yeah.
Like you can splice a chunk in and know exactly what it's going to do. And like,
yeah, we're starting to be in that place.
Right. It can be studied on this level of like, when you think of it as digital and you think of the system of DNAs, I mean, it's really, really complicated, but it's code,
right?
And it causes other things to respond a certain way. And then, so if you chase it far enough down, or you're working with the right stuff that we've studied enough, you can know exactly what a gene splice is going to cause to have happen. The same way that you know what dropping another piece of code into a computer program is going to do.
It's very neat. I mean, it's similar to what we were just talking about. Instead of being at the atomic structure, though, we're doing molecular level manipulation now. And we do it at a scale where, we can predict things that are going to happen. We can inject a little piece of DNA and make things glow. It's incredible. It's scary for people because of a lot of things. One reason we don't know what all the code does. We don't actually really know how your DNA makes your body know to grow fingers. Like that just we can like fuck with that and make you maybe grow webbed fingers. But we don't really know how it's all encoded. We don't really understand all the software. But we understand enough that we can start to do things. And that scares people big time. And it should. That should scare people.
I think it scares people because you're talking about the same thing that like cancer is a spontaneous mutation that is not in favor of the organism's survival.
Right.
But we have studied the shit out of cancer because we're so afraid of it.
Right.
And so when somebody can say that reliably over 25 years of use, this genetically modified plant has never caused a negative impact in the direction you're worried about, which is its mutation is going to rub off on me and I'm going to get cancer from it.
You're going to be like pesticide resistant.
Right. Like that doesn't happen and it's never happened. And so now with a great deal of certainty, we can say that corn, harmless. The systems that we have to deal with bad food can handle whatever is different in that corn and it doesn't affect us.
Right.
But it's scary because it's like that same mutation system, that same digital, like when that digital system breaks down, it doesn't work right. So the idea that you apply the exact same process in a different way and we get beneficial results is like, nah, I don't know.
Totally.
I don't know about that.
It's a scary space. I mean,
sounds like that comes with some risk.
There are just so many things that show up at this space. I mean, it just has bigger implications. I mean, there are huge economic implications. There are huge larger like ecosystem implications. And then there's the bigger philosophical concepts that come along with, if we're genetically modifying our food, we are kind of in a way starting to affect ourselves, whether or not there are genetic modifications as a result of that in humans. Like, we're to a point now where you can't help but think, oh, well, just around the corner is designer babies and breeding people with wings and people with laser eyes and magic and all of the great stuff I've wanted humans to have my whole life. So,
and magic. That's my favorite part.
Did I say magic?
And that fits with the like Marvel Cinematic Universe like version of Thor, which is, he's like, well, to us it is science.
Yeah. Is that what he says?
Something like that.
He's got great hair.
He does. He's got great everything.
Damn. It's true. He does.
That's why I have this here.
Oh, that's a little
my
Borg Jean-Luc
Locutus.
What is that? What is that like style of character that you just held up?
Pop vinyl.
Pop vinyl. Locutus of Borg.
Locutus of Borg.
Wow.
To remind me that resistance is futile. My answer to being afraid of that stuff is, what good is it going to do?
Yeah.
That's the direction we're going anyway. You might as well embrace it and learn about it and try to figure out how, I guess that's all anyone's flailing toward anyway, is how do I behave in the world where this stuff is happening?
Yeah. How do I feel comfortable?
But here's the thing, right?
safe?
So like the GMO thing, you're like, okay, so they allow us to do like, so modifying the food source like that allows us to do things that we otherwise were not able to do. I don't know if that's any different than irrigation. Like, people shouldn't live in Scottsdale, Arizona. It is not a place that's, is friendly to, except maybe where there's a main spring, which is where they first sprung up. There is not enough life to support human.
All of this stuff is just mechanical manipulation of our environment. Even like genetics, everything's mechanical as far as I'm concerned, partly because that's what like my education is in and stuff. I think of the world in the sense of physics and physical interactions. Everything is. And so,
I mean,
this
my
stuff is just really small and
I'm
confusing.
still on board with that.
Yeah. It's a good it's a good like, mental framework for thinking about stuff in the world. Cause, in a lot of ways, at least in like Newtonian mechanics, which dictate how the world we interact with works. So you can think of almost everything as just stuff moving around and like bumping into each other.
Right.
So it's, you're right. Irrigation is a huge manipulation of the environment. And I bet there were people way back in like Mesopotamia who were picketing by the farmers, like, you're fucking up the environment. Don't run your irrigation through my property. Like, for real. I kind of said that as a joke, but that probably was true. People are been the same for a long time, So I think there's some real concerns to have, reasonable concerns with stuff, but we don't just want to like stop doing science, and don't just be afraid of everything just because it sounds scary and you don't know what it is. Or when you think you know what it is, don't use that to be a dick either, which I do sometimes, but other people do too. So
yeah, right.
Just like,
and that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah,
is just sort of be like, well, here's the thing that because you don't have time or because you don't have the interest that we do. Like, here's just one or two layers deeper on that thing that otherwise sounds scary.
Yeah. Like,
right. Like, that's the GMO. The GMO question is not like, I'm not trying to judge people that are worried.
Onions.
I'm not trying to whatever. I thought it was really interesting.
Monster.
It's like, they don't have to put a label on for this version that sounds to me way scarier, even though it's probably fine too.
What were the two types? Say their names. They both sound horrifying.
Mutagenic and transgenic.
Mutagenic.
I think transgenic, I might be wrong about.
Whatever. They're both scary and they both sound like
but
words.
Mutagenic is the one where you deliberately cause mutations at a higher rate than would occur naturally.
There's a cool Kickstarter project I saw a while ago that was a bunch of scientists who work in labs. I think this is a common thing they do now. You insert a particular gene from like a bacteria in the ocean that glows in the dark, bioluminescence. And so people use that a lot now. You put it in all kinds of scientific studies are done this way. You can inject it into things and you can see stuff. So you can like look under a microscope and be like, oh, there's the thing that I attach this to that's now glowing. You can see like how mechanisms work in bodies and in bacteria and plants and animals. And there's a lab or a startup that said, hey, we're going to put this into plants and we are you can buy them, I think, right now. You can buy seeds that you can grow, and the plant will bioluminesce at night. So you could have like a little plant next to your bed. I don't think it puts out very much light, but enough that you can see it. But their plan as a business is to build like palm trees or Christmas trees that glow enough that we could replace street lights with glowing
that's awesome.
plants. And so then you're talking like, what's the movie with the blue people that the guy who did
Avatar.
the Terminator thing? James Cameron. You're talking about a really neat, that's a really neat new manipulation of our environment, like extreme technological understanding to kind of go back to nature, which is a really cool place you can go with things like that. So look up the other cool stuff around things like genetic manipulation, because there's really neat stuff going on.
I feel like that's a good place to end.
Sounds great to me.
You know, the thing is just go dig a little deeper before you jump on the thing you're scared about.
Yeah.
Right? Like across the board. And you can go there, start with Wikipedia. It's a reliable source.
What a great idea. And donate to Wikipedia. If everyone reading this Wikipedia article right now donated $3, we could end our campaign right now. Jimmy Wales.
That's what it says, right?
Something like that.
Jimmy Wales. Thank you.
Oh, Jimmy.
But hey, thanks for sticking around for another one. If you got questions, comments, complaints, whatever,
Don't
hit us on
complain
the
to
social places. We try to answer.
Has anyone ever hit us up on our social media accounts?
Yeah, I talk to people on Twitter.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay, nice.
Yeah, man. But yeah, rate and review, iTunes. Thanks for hanging out for another one.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm Adam.
Thanks for hanging out, everybody. We had a great time. We love your presence and enjoy your company. Cheers.
Oh, it's so touching. What's your name?
What's my name? Oh, my name's Brian. Thank you for having me. And you're welcome.
What I know. They know
Ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba.